Greetings, dear friends, fellow programmers, and those aspiring to be. Today, we will be talking about a topic that is going to supercharge your database communication in ASP.NET Core. I'm talking about bulk updates and bulk inserts, again using Entity Framework Core and ASP.NET Core. Trust me when I say this, once you master these techniques, your database will always be very thankful to you, because it will have much easier time doing all the jobs it's responsible to do. Now, why would bulk inserts and updates be so amazing in our database communication? Well, if we take into consideration the scenario that we own a pizzeria and we want to make pizzas for our customers as they order them, but every time a new person enters a shop, they stay in queue and they order one pizza, then we make it, then we put it into oven, and we bake just a single pizza at a time. Imagine how good of a user experience that would be. People would be waiting for half an hour to get their first pizza, then the second customer, then the third customer, and believe me when I say this, your business would fail very quickly. So you definitely do want to be able to do multiple pizzas at the same time. That's exactly the same thing as our communication with the database. You definitely do want to be able to create and update or delete multiple items at the same time. Our first topic of the day are going to be bulk inserts using Entity Framework, and I will be using an external library that I just want to mention so you would be aware of it. So what you want to achieve with your database communication is to reduce the number of individual calls and queries that you're executing against the database as much as possible. Because each of those commands that you are executing or queries, you are basically blocking database for other usages. So you do not want to be very chatty, you want to execute the bare minimum number of calls. As I already mentioned, the first thing I want to show you is something that is out of the box, something that is not a regular built-in functionality in Entity Framework Core. It's an external library called BulkExtensions, and it is beneficial because it contains a lot of built-in optimizations that are going to allow your queries to execute better and faster when compared to regular vanilla Entity Framework Core implementations. So this is not every time in every situation, but there certainly are some situations where you can get some benefits from using this library. So let me show you what I mean in our Visual Studio environment. So the first thing I want to do is include a reference to this library. And we can do that by using our regular, already well-known process of going to manage NuGet packages and then just searching for EFCore.BulkExtensions library, and then we install it. I already have it installed, but yeah, that's how you do it. Now that we have the library included, we just want to use the methods provided by the library. So we have a method to do just that. First things first, I want to count number of orders that we have before we start adding orders to the database, and we will print that number. Then we will create a list of new orders that we want to add in bulk, and then after we have did that by using bulk insert async method from this library we just included, we will once again count the number of orders we have in the database, and again write it down. Okay, as we can see here, our number of orders before the execution of bulk insert is 2, and after it was executed we got 5, which perfectly aligns with the number of orders we added to the database with our bulk insert query. So as you can see here, we do not have a query that is executed from this external library. That is because it is not a part of Entity Framework Core, it is generated from the external library, so it's not displayed here. But we can see that performance is 290 milliseconds, and we can now compare that result with the built-in Entity Framework AddRangeAsync method. So Let's do just that. So what we have here? We have a new implementation that is going to do the same exact thing as the previous example. We have our logic that is going to print number of orders we have before we execute bulk insert into the database. And then we have a list of orders we want to add, which is identical to the previous scenario. And then we use Entity Framework's AddRangeAsync method. And we also have to invoke SaveChangesAsync method to actually execute the query that was generated by Entity Framework. And after that, we're again printing the number of orders from the database. So let us run this piece of code and see what it does. And as we can see here, we have the same starting position. We have 2 orders in the database because I'm refreshing the database every time I run these tests. And we are then executing this query right here. So right now we can see what is getting executed to add new entries in the database because it's Entity Framework behavior. And then we can see that we now have 5 orders in the database instead of 2, which is exactly what we wanted to do. And when it comes to execution time, we can see that it's almost identical to the scenario of using external library. It's 280 before we had 290, which is basically something that we can neglect. So these were 2 different ways using external library and built-in functionality to add new entries in our database, but to do it in bulk. As you saw in those queries that are generated by Entity Framework, we are not executing 3 queries, we are executing just 1 in which we are adding all 3 new orders. So that's exactly what we wanted to achieve. Now we can proceed to our next segment of this video, which is going to be dedicated to bulk updates on our entities. So right now I would like you to think about the previous video we filmed, and maybe if you did not see it, you should consider taking a look at it, because right now we're going to utilize the functionality covered in that video. I'm talking about AsTracking method provided by Entity Framework. So what this method does is it allows Entity Framework to take hold of some resources in our hardware and then look for changes on all the entities and all the respective properties of those entities. And whenever there is a change on some of those properties, it will in the end create an update statement, which is going to update the state in our database. And in order to do this, we do not have to do much. We just fetch entities from the database, we make sure that they're not marked with as no tracking, because right now we want to track our updates, and after updating values of some properties, we just propagate them to the database by invoking SaveChangesAsync method. So let me walk you through this function we have right here. The first thing we are doing is we are fetching the list of products from the database where the price is less than 15. So as we can see, we have AsTracking method, but if you remember our previous video, this is default behavior, so potentially we can remove this, but I wanted to be explicit to make things even clearer. So we know that Entity Framework is going to track changes on all the properties we fetch from the database, and then we decide which conditions we want to be applied while fetching the products, and we want all products where the price is less than 15. And then we just put them in a list, and after that we are going to iterate through all products and we are going to print them in our console. After that, we are going to increase the price of all the products that have price less than 15 by 5, and after that we are going to propagate the changes in the database. When that is done, we will once again fetch all the products from the database, but this time we want to fetch them all and then iterate through all of them and print them again. So we would be able to compare and see whether the updates we had were actually saved in the database. So let us run this. And as we can see, everything seems to be working exactly as we expected. We have initially fetched products where the price is less than 15, which are products A and C, where prices are 10 and 5 respectively. And then we're executing a single update statement where we're updating the price and only price, take a note here, of both properties that we updated. After that, we are fetching all products and displaying them right here. And when we take a look at product A, its value is now 15 and product C is now 10. So everything went as expected. We saved and updated properties properly. Now, after we have covered that approach that we were already familiar with, we can go to UpdateRange method provided by Entity Framework and discuss the differences between this approach and UpdateRange approach. So let's do just that. As we can see, initially our code is identical, almost identical to be more exact, because we're now using AsTracking. So this will improve the performance of our code, and also Entity Framework is not going to track updates on property values from the entities we just fetched from the database. Then we're printing them to our console, we're increasing prices by 5 as in previous scenario, and then we are invoking UpdateRange, and we want to pass along products that we want to update. And then we just execute SaveChangesAsync method, and everything should be propagated to the database successfully. So this part right here is just printing to the console again. So let us run this, and when we compare the results, we can see that everything seems to be working as expected. We have product A that was initially priced at 10 and product C that was priced at 5. We updated their values by invoking update statements, and now product A has value of 15 and product C has price 10. So now let's focus on the script itself. I want you to take a good look and tell me what is the difference between this script and the previous one. And if you noticed, the difference is the fact that right here in UpdateRange method, we are not updating just the price, even though we in reality updated just the price of the entities. We did not touch name or ID. But here we can see that code is updating both name and price for our products. So what is happening here? Well, when you think about it, it makes sense, because we told Entity Framework we do not want it to track changes on individual properties of our entities. So it did exactly that. It did not care about the changes. So in order to be able to update all the changes for all the properties we fetched from the database. And that's exactly what we have here. So you should be very careful and think very thoroughly about which of these scenarios you want to use, because each of them has its own drawbacks and benefits when you think about it. When you want to update just a couple of properties of your entities, you will definitely want to use AsTracking and then just save changes, because that way you will not have to update the rest of them. If you have large entities that have like 20 properties and you're in reality updating just a couple of them, why would you update them using UpdateRange method? Because it would update all the properties and you're just updating 2. So in those cases, you would like to use AsTracking method and just SaveChangesAsync method that is going to propagate those changes to the database. But in scenario when you're actually working and updating most of the properties of your entities, I think it would be better to use AsTracking, which is going to improve the performance of execution, because Entity Framework will not use hardware resources to track changes, and also you will be updating most properties either way, so you will not have significant changes in performance when compared to AsTracking and UpdateRange methods. So you have to be careful and make an informed decision. So that's exactly what this video was all about. And there you have it, folks. Now you're officially a master of bulk updates and the bulk inserts in ASP.NET Core 8. I would like to make sure that you are going to be an amazing owner of pizzeria, because right now you know you should not make just a single pizza at a time. And of course, if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, I would like to kindly invite you to subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon, because that way you will never miss another of these very useful .NET related tips. Until the next video, I would like to thank you for watching and as usual wish you happy coding!